So now first fights are set up pretty well. The whole Mereoleona time, I think in general, is just super hype. But I think everybody is just way more long scale invested in seeing the Dark Triad fight. I mean, everybody wants to see Mereoleona just in action, but I think if she was against a better opponent, it would have been more hype because this is just such an out of nowhere enemy that that they're dealing with. That it's still fun, but the Dark Triad have, you know, the major focus of the Phantom for the antagonist, and I'm sure everybody can understand why. But this chapter, I think this is again a pretty solid, just hype setup while still not just being a kind of like more stale kind of setup, because you can get those setups where it's like way more informative. It's a lot of just stuff getting piled up and you're just happy that there's so much content. But I think this one had a really good balance of starting with that when we got the whole the information of Noct of how the Dark Triad are in formation in specific locations for the ritual, and if they can kind of like stop them while they're in, you know, whatever their partition and participation kind of role is in this, then it can help stop the whole tree. Because there's like a note of like, oh well, there's a chance we could stop with anti-magic, but I don't know if that plan's gonna work. So I mean, that's just foreshadowing the potential when it comes to Asta and whatnot later on. But the current plan right now, like just going after the Dark Triad, I think, you know, just it's a nice start, and it's just one of those plans I assume is gonna fail. Maybe it doesn't, you know, it doesn't work out in either their favors in full. Like the Dark Triad gets their plan screwed up a little bit, but it's not fully kind of thwarted. There's a lot right now in just general set out, like just the layout of what's to come in the next handful of chapters, because there's still a lot of mystery over where things are going, because it feels like this is already setting up for the end fights, because obviously they're going to the Dark Tribe. But the thing is, like, that we forget, because we're really like, a lot of people look at it as more of like them versus like the Dark Triad, as, you know, the primary antagonist of this arc. But we have to keep in mind also the devils that are going to come through the tree, because those are very powerful opponents. So we haven't met them. They are people that have been that have just been foreshadowed, you know, laid out to run into at some point. So there's a really weird dynamic right now where because of how fast like they're rushing into battle, and how we're seeing like in this chapter the Dark Triad have their matches set up, at least the starting matches. Because I did go over a theory with some of the, you know, the normal Black Clover people over the fact that in the panel where you can see each of the Dark Triad members, Xenon's mark doesn't go all the way over where it should be like visible on his face. And the question is, like, what if during this ritual they aren't able to use their devil powers like the same? Like, I think that would be a good nerf, and you could maybe see like what they're capable of prior to devil boost, and it would be like they're trying to fight them. They're like, maybe like they're able to kind of beat the Dark Triad without like their devil increases and their, you know, crazy hack combo abilities. And then they said, okay, we're gonna put the ritual on hold and take care of you guys. And that's at the point where it's like, it's not going to defeat them, it's not gonna win the battle, but it could prolong something, or give like the Clover a chance to go in and try and get William or Yami. There's a lot just happening right now in the opening that's really interesting, just because it's again seemingly way faster paced, but it's just because these are the guys we're starting out with and not the guys we're getting way later with like these other devils. And I do genuinely think that we're going to be getting, you know, big reinforcements from other kingdoms and stuff. I want, you know, the Diamond Kingdom, I want Mars and Fonzel to show up. I'm really hoping, you know, we get Gaja over here. I don't know why the Wish Queen wouldn't want to get involved in this, considering that they're going to come for her territory too and take over her zone. And I don't think she wants to live in a post-devil kind of overrun, you know, continent. So it would probably be within her best interest to like help out. But like there's just a lot of opportunity here that I really want to see how Tabata just handles, and I trust him in his style. So I'm pretty hyped. But like, other than that, like just the first kind of motions, like we see members like just split up and spread out. I do like the fact that like we see not in the fights, like we see, oh yeah, there's Fuego, Leona, and Dorothy and stuff, but Dorothy's eyes open, her being awake is just such a cool kind of like little nod to her being in battle, because just the way that we know she is, how powerful she is, but she's just always really tired and always asleep. So it just gives a level of extra, a little extra like action precedence, like severity precedence, knowing that Dorothy is, you know, in action, ready to fight. So again, this arc I think is starting in a really heavy spot, but we do get the flashback of Noct running into Mereoleona. And everyone always has been talking about the scene of Mereoleona like walking out in the lava, and it's fan servicey, but it's badass at the same time. It's like the same kind of like amount of like if it was in reverse and if it was just like some buff dude walking out there. It's done in a way that it's badass, but also, you know, you can look at it and be like pretty nice. It doesn't have as much of a lewd kind of press as I think a lot of people would go for, because it's not done in a like overly angled or like pretty crazy way. I think the real kind of most lewd thing really can kind of take the trait into this is the fact that Mereoleona bathing in lava, you know, in black and white, you know, it looks like the whole, like when a character gets like, oh, it's a sticky substance gotten over this chick. It's not playing nearly as much of that, but I can see kind of where people would go for it. Either way though, I see it the way more supposed to be an indicator of like Mereoleona's like improvement. Like her mana skin is such to the extent that she can be on lava, that she can get inside lava and bathe in lava. Like that's a really big accomplishment for her. And not only that, it's like this isn't just a volcano, this is a, you know, a strong magic region. So she has been training her mana, like just a general ability and grasp, a lot. And then we see that here. I mentioned going into this, I really just want to see some new spells from characters starting out. And it's not just in like seeing, oh, I want to see characters just do stuff in fights. It's characters like Mereoleona and, you know, Jack, we have barely any spells with, and it's like weird because Mereoleona versus like Jack, in terms of like comparing, not in a fight, but comparing their displays, Mereoleona, we've gotten a significant amount more of material up than Jack. But even looking at Mereoleona's fight, we only got a couple moves from her. Like, we only got Calidus Bracken Barrage, and then her Purgatory. And then a couple unnamed moves when she's got, like, the Lioness Claw. But I like that they were able to kind of... Like, Tabata is building off, like, her spell moveset, but in a way that doesn't kind of break away from her style. Like, her whole Hellfire Incarnate, she's just layering herself with her fire and getting way more in tune with mana. Like, the people even watching are even saying like, oh, you know, it's like her body itself has become mana. And again, I'm gonna say this just every time until it's either resolved, it happens, or it's resolved. But one of those Spade Resistance guys has to be strong. I just want at least one of them to be like mid-captain level. Just one of them. Just one guy. It's going to be really sad to me if one person within the, you know, not one person within the Spade Resistance is strong. They're just a bunch of weaklings kind of like hiding in the shadows, making noise. That actually really just make me disappointed. Like the Spirit Guardians at least had Gaja. Gaja is a monster. Like he makes up for the other ones, but it'll be pretty unfortunate for the Spade Resistance if they're just outright weak. Like they don't need to have a Mereoleona, but if they can have just kind of like a mid-area captain where it's like he could contend with just one person in one captain. Like if one of them was Nozel level, just that. I think that'd be pretty fair. I guess Nozel is like a little bit of an upper captain, but you know what I mean? They don't need to have a Gaja, but just one guy that's like, this guy can actually keep up, kind of like important dude. But Mereoleona just laying into this devil, and this devil is for sure not as dangerous as the Lick Devil. I think not only just size, like no wings, like this chapter, like when we saw the actual fight happen, we saw like Lumiere racing all over the place. We saw the Demon Lick just shooting energy beams that he's constantly have to clash with in order to prevent like just touching down on the Clover Kingdom. It seemed way faster, way more powerful, just in general more impressive. Granted, this one is still strong, but I know that like the conversation over this last like week or so has been Mereoleona in comparison to like, you know, Lumiere, because, you know, they both fought devils, but people have to keep in mind that regardless, like, we don't know the exact gap, but this devil is definitely not as powerful as Mereoleona's devil. Or sorry, as Lick's devil. Lick's devil is way stronger than this. Just on every single instance of its display just seemed way stronger. But the last thing I just want to go over is the fights at the end. Like, this chapter I actually thought I was going to talk way more about, just because the last chapters have been a little lengthy. I usually can kind of give that upper 10s to early 20s with some of these more meaty chapters. But this one was way more of an action Mereoleona chapter, and I'm okay with that. I'm a Mereoleona fan. I've mentioned many times before, I really like her character. I think she's really cool. So I'm pretty happy about this, even if it was a pretty fast read chapter. Her big move, her Purgatory Abyss, is pretty badass too. It's just like this giant downward smash punch, and when she does it, it just lights the entire area up, just plunges you essentially into a hellish-like landscape. It's pretty badass. But just looking at the fights themselves, I really want to know if the whole theory based off of that Xenon panel is true, because when you look at them, like Dante's, I thought that wasn't Dante for a little bit. I was like trying to figure out what the point of like not having Dante visible, just doing a silhouette, was, like what the point of that was. And I was like, well, maybe it's not Dante something, trying to like figure out like some weird reason for it. But I forgot about the first page where it shows like the triangle and it shows each of them on there. It'd be really weird for it not to be Dante after that, because it just makes sense to be Dante at this point. But I mean, there's always the possibility, just because Tabata could do anything, but it's more than likely that this is Dante. The thing though that I think is why he has like the degrees of visibility with the Dark Triad members, because Dante is fully silhouetted, Vanica's off in the distance but you can see her, whereas Xenon is up close and part of his face is shaded, but it's specifically the majority of his face is shaded where a majority of his mark is. So you can just see a little bit of the area that would be visible where the mark is, and it's not there. So I think the point of the angles that Tabata took with this was to kind of be a little bit slick with the Xenon's devil mark. We'll see though. I mean, that could just not be the case, and it could just be maybe like an error in the art or something. It could just be, you know, a really small, oh yeah, just a little blunder, and it was supposed to be there kind of thing. I think it would be pretty fair though, and it would make sense. It's like, oh well, they're doing this devil ritual, they can't, you know, use devil abilities, and it would make sense of why they couldn't just overrun these opponents. The fights themselves, I think, are going to be really interesting, because even if the point, like if they have their powers, like they're at full power, they could use their devil powers whatever they want. They're in a really weird spot, because if they have to stay in these ritual zones, how are they going to fight? Because Xenon would be able to fight, because Xenon's portals, and then with his bone magic, he's shown he could be a very precision based fighter. Like he can beat somebody just in the idea of like small portal, bone to the face, like just instant kill. He's not like Dante, where Dante's gravity manipulation is widespread, or, you know, just a sheer like physical like strength of when he's using his body magic. Like his doesn't seem like it would have the delicacy for like keeping this area intact. And Vanica just seems to be very uncaring once she kind of gets going. She just seems to kind of, once you get Vanica going, she's just, anything in her way, she's just gonna kind of plow through. So pretty interesting fight setup. Like you've got Vanica against Rill and Charlotte. So that fight, I think, is going to be really intriguing. It's going to really depend, I think, with these in general, of how well they go on, is if the Dark Triad can use their devil magic, because that is a boost in itself and an extra very dangerous magic. Jack and Noct versus Dante, I think, is honestly probably one of the better groups here. The one that's in a rough spot is Yuno and Langris versus Xenon. Because here's the thing. Langris and Yuno are both those upper vice captain level people, kind of like low captain level, like in the area of like Rill. But counting Rill is a little bit above that, because we know Rill started out at that bar. And granted, and Langris could easily be stronger than than early Rill, because Rill's thing wasn't power, it was utility and potential. But we know he just went through like a time skip training period, we just haven't seen it yet. But he also has Charlotte, who Charlotte was also pretty powerful, and she just went through a training period. And we saw that Charlotte is actually stronger than we thought she was after the captain episode, when she was able to keep up with Yami. Like, Charlotte doesn't seem as outright powerful as like some of the other captains, but I think in terms of just like speed and precision and technique, she is. I think that hers is just a different style of how she fights, and my guess is things like speed and technique are her thing. But she is definitely stronger. Like, if this is full power Vonica, I think they're screwed. But if Vonica is nerfed and they can only use her base magic, they're in a better position. Xenon and against Langris and I think are in the worst spot, because regardless of like where you look at Noct and Rill and like the scale, you have Jack and Charlotte. You have full captain level people who got stronger since like the time skip. We haven't seen how powerful they've gotten, whereas like and Langris does not equal like the level of extra that like these other guys get. Like, essentially it's like you have upper vice captain to low captain level Noct, lower captain level like Rill. And I know like Rill is powerful, but like obviously in terms of compared to the other captains, he's not nearly as strong. But Xenon against Langris and is dangerous. Granted, if he doesn't have his devil powers for a short period of time, I think it would be way more balanced, where you can have them contend with him. Because we know that Xenon was the last ones like to get control of his devil powers out of the Dark Triad, so it would make sense of why they could at least contend with him to a degree, as long as he's holding back, doesn't want to destroy the area and whatnot. But anyway, it's going along a little bit longer than I thought. Like, it was in that kind of like upper 10s kind of area, so I'll wrap this up. Other than that, though, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter, and tell me your thoughts on what's coming up. I think the matches themselves are really intriguing, and then if that idea of the Dark Triad not being able to use their devil powers, I think that's a really interesting plot point that could happen, just based off of a little bit of foreshadowing in this chapter, but we'll see. Other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, from the like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's always subscribes. Thank you all for listening. Bye.